Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another best of the week video, starting with Joseph Parker. And his current plight is not lost on him. He knows that after his win against Martin Bakole, he's not necessarily better off. As we know, he was meant to face Daniel Dubois. Dubois pulls out sick. Parker beats Bakole, and Joseph Parker seems like he's in a little bit of limbo. No title shot next necessarily. And speaking to Ariel Helwani, he says, it feels like we're so close to a world title. Then all of a sudden he got sick, and now they're lining up this big fight with Usyk and Dubois. I'm not sure what we need to do. I think we've done everything asked of us. So, yeah, Joseph Parker, aware and cognizant that, unfortunately, he may need to do more until he gets a title shot. And he's been on a really good run of late, the best run, I believe, of his career, having wins over Zhang Jilei, Deontay Wilder, and now Martin Bakole, even though Bakole was at short notice. Still a very good win. His trainer, Andy Lee, is campaigning for a title fight next, telling Boxing Scene Joe should be fighting for the title next. There's no reason for him to be going around the houses anymore. Who needs to see that? And speaking of Usyk and Dubois too, it will sell in the UK probably, but from a boxing point of view, I think Joe will give him the best fight. I think Joe is the best fight for him out there for Usyk. Joe or Kolbeinn. I think they give Usyk the best fight because of their size, because of their work rate, because of their ability and their coordination. They can match him. These big, tall guys who are slow and cumbersome or uncoordinated, Usyk will eat them up all day. Joe's a very clever fighter. We're in a horrible situation, but we got a great outcome, and this is of taking that Bakole fight. The punch that knocked out Bakole, it wasn't because Bakole was tired or because he came in late. Every good professional fighter has 4 to 6 good rounds in them, and that punch would have knocked Bakole out with 20 weeks of camp, never mind 2 days of camp. It was a great punch, and just to jump in there, Bakole didn't have a camp. We're in a horrible position because we were getting punished because Daniel Dubois pulled out sick. There's been no criticism of Daniel Dubois, but there was a horrible criticism of Floyd Schofield, who, from what I heard, was in bad shape. All of a sudden, we're the ones under pressure to take the fight, a Coley or Bakole. So we took Bakole, the biggest challenge, and Joe did what he had to do. And actually, of the Parker situation, I put a poll up, and 600, 700 of you voted in this one, 668. And I asked the question, should Big Turkey LL Sheikh, ask Frank Warren to reschedule Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker? And of those who voted, a overwhelming majority, 86%, said yes. 8% no, and 5% who cares. So obviously of those who voted, which, there could be a fair few Joseph Parker fans voting, they obviously think that there's an element of fairness, as do I. But as we know, boxing is not a fair sport. And it was ironic with some of the New Zealand media this week that I've noted they've obviously just sort of cottoned on to this whole boxing is not necessarily a fair situation and coming to Parker's defence. And I guess, the thing is he's done what he had to do. He hasn't got the title shot. And it is interesting that he's going to have to continue sitting, waiting and watching. And as I mentioned in another video, with Bakole due to be back out in May, it will be the third fight in a row where his opponent who has lost is out again soon in a big fight. There's something not quite right about that. Hey, but that's boxing after all. Martin Bakole, he will be back out in May, as I mentioned, and his trainer, Billy Nelson, says that he'll be back to being the boogeyman. Before I get to the quotes here, the thing is, with the way that he showed up, way out of shape, and taken out inside 2 rounds, despite a camp and maybe a better performance had he have been prepared, the whole scenario of being back to the boogeyman, it's just not happening. The toothpaste is out of the tube now. Bakole is not going to have that. He was able to, over a number of years after that loss to Michael Hunter, where he did have an injury in that one, but he also did look like he tried to quit late in that one. He was able to build back up that reputation. It's not coming back instantly with one fight, with one performance. Sure, he's a dangerous fighter with power in both hands, and he can be a real handful with his long punches. But, after that sort of performance, getting taken out in 2 rounds, I mean, come on. It's delusional saying that he's going to be back to being the boogeyman. And of that fight with Ebenezeh Tetteh, which originally was meant to be an IBF final eliminator, and the question now is, can Bakole fight for that, for the eliminated position, coming off a loss? I wouldn't have thought so, but it's boxing. Nothing should ever surprise us. But Nelson has stated the fight is happening. It might be an eliminator. It's not a final eliminator. It might be happening in Saudi Arabia in the Canelo undercard. He got caught by one punch. That's not going to define his career. Wait and see the difference in 10 weeks and we fight Ebenezeh Tetteh. He'll be back to being the boogeyman, or whatever they want to call him. But what he will do is have a full camp for every fight he has from now on. It was a one-off, a huge risk, never paid off. There's a high risk and low reward. That was high risk and a very high reward there. And from his perspective, obviously they had the position where take the fight, win or lose, you still get the fight in May, or the fight next with Ebenezeh Tetteh. So I can see why they took it, and I can also see why, after Bakole got hurt and dropped, why Billy Nelson threw in the towel so quickly, knowing he had to save his man for an upcoming fight. Some people may have some thoughts about that. He continues, ultimately it's my boxer. I'm a manager as well. A boxer's career is a short window. They've got to maximize their earning potential. Martin got life-changing money. You see the money they're mentioning? Far greater. He got exceptionally good money for that fight, and it will do him and generations of his family with guarantees that we're still fighting Ebenezeh Tetteh in early May. It's my job. Martin secured his family's future. Would you not like to be in that position? I can totally agree with that. They are prize fighters after all. And Nelson, when he was asked if he was fazed that the IBF stipulation will no longer be present, and this is the whole thing about the final eliminator, or is it an eliminator? I mean, this is the thing. It's almost like Ebenezeh Tetteh is being punished if it's not a final eliminator. So he continues, it's right. Of course it's right. Rules are rules. You've got to abide by them, but let's not be a hypocrite with the words of a certain promoter. On Saturday morning, it was a great fight and great replacement. On Sunday morning, it should never have happened. It can't be both ways. Well, I guess some people will say it could be both ways because of the performance Bakole turned in. They say you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. Bakole was not ready. I mean, I saw Lawrence Okoli there, and he was willing to have jumped in with Joseph Parker, and he looked, trim and ready to go. He looked in a decent shape. Then again, I mean, it is what it is. It's in the books now. But Martin Bakole being back to the boogeyman, no, that's not happening anytime soon. Sergey Kuzmin, so this is the first of 2 fights that we'll just cover briefly, some results. So he fought Ebenezeh Tetteh, and this is in Russia. It was a 6-rounder. He gets the decision there, but it wasn't without a few little sort of headaches, because he started out reasonably strong, a really good second round, drops Tetteh in the 3rd round, and it had a bit of a, okay, he's going to really sort of take him out here. But after he drops Tetteh with a big right hand where Tetteh takes a knee, you had a situation where it's almost like Kuzmin ran out of gas or something happened, and he wasn't able to be as effective. And actually, and similar to the Dillian White fight, Ebenezeh Tetteh was far more competitive than he had any right to be. But I think that has more to do with that Kuzmin is also on the decline. And in that 3rd round after he was dropped, he still managed to actually clip Kuzmin with a decent uppercut, which actually backed him up, and he didn't do too much in the final 30 seconds of that round. So you had a situation, it ended up getting pretty sort of sloppy and scrappy, and Tetteh being far more competitive than it should be. 6-rounder decision to Kuzmin there, and Tetteh will be out again in April against Fraser Clark. And if he continues to be somewhat durable, maybe it's not as terrible a fight for Clark. as maybe our first thought. But after seeing him getting absolutely waxed 6 years ago by Daniel Dubois in a round, Tetteh with these performances versus White and Kuzmin, showing that there's a little bit of determination and grit, and he's not just going to roll over. So hopefully he can bring that to the fight with Clark in April. And this fight, actually, Kuzmin and Ebenezeh Tetteh, is up on YouTube. You can find it, so do search it up. Kuzmin as well, ahead of this fight in recent months, has dropped about 20 kgs. I don't know, maybe that worked against him, but he'd been out of the ring for a while and he did look a little sort of half a step off where he should be. But he also is 37 years old and he's been relatively inactive in recent years. His sort of decline in the heavyweight division sort of came hand in hand with Alexander Povetkin's retirement. Those World of Boxing cards, he's not really being pushed in the same way, getting the same opportunities. He's kind of been in the wilderness. Also, Alexis Barriere, he was in a fight on a Matchroom card, Matchroom's first card in Canada, and he was facing, what was his name, Ubaldo Ilagor. So a Mexican heavyweight, and decent performance by Alexis Barriere. He did actually get clipped a couple of times by a very game Ilagor, but at the same time, when he was aggressive behind, the 1-2 and sitting down on his punches, he looked good. But there were occasions, and his trainer, Sugar Hill Stewart, who's been working with for a little while, was saying you need to really be more aggressive and step it up. He's there to be taken out if you can, put your foot down. And this is one of the criticisms that I've had about Alexis Barriere in the past, that sometimes he looks really good and you think, oh, he actually could be a really good addition to the heavyweight division. And then there was a fight a couple of years ago, because he knocked out Adam Braidwood in a round, good performance, and then Zbigniew Atakeshiev. It was just a really sort of passive performance. And what next for Alexis Barriere? This was meant to be a potential audition for a contract with Matchroom, and I think potentially Matchroom will pick him up because, unbeaten, 29 years old, he's got good skills, good footwork, a little bit of pop, but I kind of think he's going to be one of these guys who's going to have his ceiling capped, that he's not going to rise beyond about, the top 20, top 25. I think he's going to be there or thereabouts. Potentially, there's a little bit of that Otto Wallin, a little bit safety first, a little bit passive, and against much better opposition. I don't think that's going to bode as well. But also, I think Matchroom might be looking at their stable and going, we need to have a few more guys at that level, Dempsey, McKean are a little bit better, that we can start matching with some of our other heavyweights. They put McKean in with Filip Hrgović, and if Hrgović is coming back, Alexis Barriere might be a good, comeback fight for Hrgović. Who knows where Hrgović is at and his mind mentally after his fight with Dubois. It hasn't really sort of seemed like he's wanted to be in the sport of late. But also, Alexis Barriere, potentially, could that be a matchup they make for a Justis Huni? I think there's some options there, and they don't necessarily have a lot of heavyweights or the same sort of pull and power and position in the heavyweight division that they had in years gone by. So they might need to sign a few guys just so they can burn them off against some of their heavyweights that they do want to push. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, he looked decent in there against Ilagor, advances to 12-0. And rounding up this best of the week video, so you had the Ice Bear gunner Kolbeinn Kristinsson. He's signing a fight here, as you can see, an opponent for a 12-rounder in Germany, and this will be coming in May. So the opponent's still TBA, and gunner Kolbeinn Kristinsson, the Ice Bear as they call him, Iceland's only professional heavyweight, and he said that he's super excited. Let's go. More details soon. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.